Contrary to popular wishes, cluck cluck jibber jibber mild-man's a mushroom. That's right, it's time to part the milky thighs of podcast number 24. I'm Paul Hudson.
I'm Mike Saunders. I think that's
I don't know if I want to put my name to that.
We're only going for 5 seconds, come on guys.
I'm Graham Morrison.
And I'm...
Not.
Andrew Gregory.
And in this podcast, we're talking GNOME, and Linux money, and we pick the best comments from the full year of TuxRadar and our open ballot. Is it good to sue for GPL violations? Don't forget we're publishing news, features, and more on TuxRadar.com, so bookmark it today. And fresh news, we've just put to bed a print version of the Hudson Coding Academy, so we're all relaxed and slightly merry approaching Christmas. It'll be on sale early January. We'll provide a link online so you can all buy it, and of course you will all buy it because you love us so much. And don't forget, you can subscribe to the magazine at tinyurl.com/podcastlxf.
And it's time for the news, hosted by me.
That's a great introduction.
You again, Andrew Gregory.
I'm Andrew Gregory. The top story, apparently, on our list here is that certain members of the GNOME... Oh, no, the GNOME. The GNOME.
Let's give it the credit.
The GNOME community
GNOME
are considering or have thought about dropping their allegiance to the GNU project, Richard Stallman's GNU project, which has always been an important part of what the GNOME project is all about. I mean, that was why it was founded in the first place. It's difficult. It all seems to have happened because of Planet GNOME's news aggregation of other people's blogs and a discussion about VMware.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, Richard Stallman was unhappy that news articles were being posted about proprietary software on the GNOME blog. Stallman saying GNOME is a GNU project. GNU is all about free software, exclusively free software, and therefore it shouldn't be used as a platform to advertise non-free software.
Well, these were guys who had worked on GNOME for quite a while, and then obviously been snapped up by companies. You know, VMware wants to make a front end, they choose GNOME, GTK, they hire existing developers, and those guys, their blogs are still being aggregated by Planet GNOME, but now they're talking about VMware or whatever they're working on, which makes sense. You know, it's not their fault someone's aggregating their blog. That's what it's there for, quite frankly.
Yeah. I mean, there isn't any grand philosophy behind Planet GNOME. It's a loose affiliation of GNOME users. And in fact, Stormy Peters responded to Richard Stallman's initial criticism. Stormy Peters is the GNOME Foundation's executive director. She said, Planet GNOME is about people, and we display everybody's full blog feed as it represents them. They are people that work on proprietary software as well as GNOME, and that's who they are. I don't think we should reject people because they don't agree with us 100% of the time. And that is something that RMS disagrees with.
Well, that's it. If you are a part of the GNOME project, then what responsibilities do you have? I mean, you know, Richard Stallman does have very firm beliefs, and he sticks by them, which we can praise him for, and which can occasionally, you know, annoy people as well. I think it's a bit over the top, but he's effectively saying if you're going to be a GNOME project, you've got to behave a GNU project. You've got to behave in a GNU-like way.
There was one point in the thread of discussion where he was saying that in your private lives you can do whatever you want. You can work for a proprietary software company, but this is the Planet GNOME and the aggregated news is as close to being a professional life for GNU and the Gnome Foundation, and you represent the beliefs of GNU. I mean, that's something we're familiar with when you work for a company, and that's what he's saying of a lot of people's free contributions.
But they don't stick to the GPL. In GNOME, they use the LGPL very often version 2 rather
That's
than version
true,
3.
yeah.
They don't stick to the coding standards for the GNU. They don't use them at all. They don't assign copyright to the FSF. Whereas every other project do all these things. So it's very different land. It's really right on the edge of the GNU border.
Is it just the GN sound?
Yeah.
That the GNOME takes?
That's what you have to ask.
Well, the thing is, when it was founded, yes, it was founded thanks to the idea of just push GNU and make it really free. But it also founded as the networked object model environment rubbish no one cares about anymore either. Maybe it's just another dusty relic to get rid of. I mean, I totally agree with what Stallman does, and I think he's a great man. He does awesome things.
Yeah.
But the GNOME guys are known for being very, very open, being very, very welcoming, and I can see why they want to have a bigger community. Because for a start, they've got some very large corporate sponsors who funded GNOME, who helped fly developers around the world to conferences, which makes GNOME work in the first place.
That's a good point. I mean, how far do you take it as the GNU project? Do you say, well, you can't have a blog post from anybody who happens to also make proprietary software? So if IBM makes a load of GPL GNOME stuff, are they not allowed to post on Planet GNOME because they make some closed source things?
And Planet GNOME isn't there to represent the official view of the GNOME Foundation. It says, hey, this is the GNOME planet. This is what's happening in the GNOME world now.
Yeah, I'd imagine they have a disclaimer or something saying, this is just people's opinions.
There is a disclaimer.
Aggregation.
There is a disclaimer.
Yeah.
It's an aggregation pulling together many, many views from people. I mean, I tend to read the monologue aggregator.
Yeah.
And that's random stuff. Here's the new version of Mono. Here's a picture of my dog.
Yeah.
I don't go, dogs, I'm a cat person.
And, RMS has said, really kind of encapsulated all that. So by saying, so GNOME is merely part of a system that we developed for the sake of freedom. GNOME was developed specifically to protect freedom. There are no clearer examples of software which exists for the sake of freedom than GNOME.
What a man.
What, not even heard?
When I hear him say that, I imagine the word we to mean him and the FSF, not the actual GNOME developers. We developed it, we get to choose what it's about. And the answer is, well, actually, Richard, how much of the GNOME code have you written?
Yeah, I wonder how much he has written.
About that much.
Says it all.
More than me.
So, the usual RMS. Somebody's waded into RMS's territory and the crocodile has snapped.
I think they should drop the GNU bit, lowercase GNOME, so it's capital G and nothing else. Drop the whole network object model thing and just call it GNOME, and it'll be the de facto Linux desktop pretty quickly.
It is a bit elitist, isn't it, with the GNOME thing? It's bad of us to have actually fallen into it.
I know.
I haven't.
No, you haven't, and you remind
GNOME.
us, and we all feel stupid when you tell us as well.
You should feel stupid.
I just feel stupid generally.
I quite like Genome, though. That's quite good. Bucking the trend completely.
Well, we were talking about this before. It's a bit of peer pressure, maybe a bit of. And I've always been weak when it comes to peer pressure.
I got it from you.
I got it from Mike.
Really? But I use XFCE. So.
And he got it from Winnie the Pooh.
The second news story is actually could be very important in the next year, and it's the story that a screensaver bundled with it's not bundled with Ubuntu, is it? It's on the GNOME Look.
It's on the GNOME Look theme site,
actually has a malicious script embedded within it that looks like it connects to other machines and could potentially do other bad things.
I say it looks like a denial of service script.
The first step towards being a botnet, I reckon.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't looked at it. I don't know, but is there? Does it call back home? Is there anywhere that it's going with it?
It has. From what I remember looking at, it does retrieve a subsequent script from another site and then executes that. So basically, the person in charge of this can change it and make it do what he or she wants.
Right.
But it's a fascinating example because this is not something you have to install. This is not a package you have to install as root, which is what you think would be the normal vector of some Linux malware. But this is just a theme, a screensaver from the GNOME Look site, but it actually does execute a script. So there is an attack vector.
We've all known the potential for this kind of thing. It's huge because none of us stick to official packages from an official repository, which should be safe.
Well, that's it. It was right as a dev file, so you just do sudo dpkg
I do
install
absolutely anything it takes. Yeah. I change mod 777, -r on the whole root thing, if that's what it takes to execute the damn thing. I really will do anything. I'm trying to get something to install.
Yeah.
The warning pops up. Only install third-party software from vendors who you trust. Yeah, okay.
Is that what it says? I didn't even read it.
It turned out never show this dialogue again. Yeah.
I remember that when Firefox introduced the whole "let's not let them click continue so quick," and I'm like, no, don't click the button. Let me click continue. I want to install it now. I don't care. Which is very, very dangerous, as has now been proven.
And I think problems are inevitable, and it's probably a sign that Linux is getting a bigger and bigger share of the market and becoming more important.
I'm quite glad that this happened, in a way, before I get flamed to death, because I'm glad that a very low-key event like this has shown that although Linux is inherently a more secure operating system than Windows, no operating system is invincible.
If you're running them as root, you're basically done for.
If you run code you don't know, then you have perhaps more layers of security on Linux and Unix than you would have on Windows. But anything connected to the internet with users willing to run anything is at risk. So
I'm glad it happened too. but only because we've got a virus checker roundup in the in the issue of Linux format.
I bet none of them would have found it.
None of them found this.
Well, none of them have found it, but I can see ClamAV thinking about this in the future.
Yeah.
You're about to run this package. Wait a minute. Why does it want to copy bash.sh, was there the file, if I remember correctly, into, I think it's etc or somewhere completely random.
Yeah.
Why does it want to put executable files there? Because there are some things we're kind of used to, and that unpredictable behavior is actually very obvious in Linux in a way. And ClamAV could easily have some heuristics in there to spot this kind of thing that the big manufacturers wouldn't care about because they only detect Windows viruses. Fair enough. So I can really see ClamAV actually taking action on this and saying we can beat this kind of problem, or at least really stop it in many ways.
I mean, yeah, there's a lot we can be done. Linux is actually well prepared for this kind of thing. I mean, there's some fantastic security in Linux, things like SE Linux. I mean, nothing's going to help your home directory, but it'd be actually quite interesting to keep, if there was a simple log of unofficial packages that you have installed, so you can see things that you've installed, and maybe just see what versions are there, and at least you're aware. Because unfortunately, with Debs, once they've gone into the system, they could be anywhere, and you could have installed them years ago, and it doesn't matter. You've just upgraded your system. That's a bit of a threat.
Yeah, I mean, we're so used to package repositories having packages that are signed and have been checked by many people, especially if it's from, the mighty Debian project. But this is just a GNOME Look website screensaver, and it isn't going to be subjected as much to...
Is this the real reason that Richard Stallman's angry with them?
Because his box has been hacked, but he runs the herd without even an X server, so he doesn't need a screensaver for his Emacs terminal.
He uses the herd as well.
I would assume so. If he doesn't,
I should email him about that problem I was having.
you and him.
I think there should definitely be ways of spotting problems better in the future. So, for example, this was running a server. It shouldn't be running. It should be very obvious to find. And yet, some user who just types PS. AUX, whatever, to try and find something, just gets listed full of stuff running a system.
Yeah.
Show me things that I haven't installed through the package manager, please.
Yeah.
That'd be quite nice.
Yeah, or unofficial things, or
yeah.
Maybe some simple diff of what's changed since the last time you installed something, just to see what's happening.
But a lot of, I don't remember, is it ZoneMinder for Windows?
Yes, yeah.
It says things like, this program's trying to connect to the internet. Why is it trying to do that? Do you want it to do that? And they go, wait a minute, what's bash.sh? I haven't heard of that.
SV host, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Whatever it is, they might spot it. And I don't think that kind of thing exists on Linux at all right now.
No, because, we've never had to worry about it.
No. But it was, credit to the community, it was found and fixed quickly.
Yeah,
24 hours.
Also found by somebody who seems like a relatively normal user. It's not an uber geek pouring through the source code.
It was just posted on Ubuntu forums, wasn't it? Somebody saying, I've installed this, and the screensaver, it doesn't work at all. And then...
Well, that's it. If it were me doing it wasn't me, obviously, I would actually put a screensaver in there as well. Here's a picture of some fluffy bears. and while it's running in the background, destroying servers online. Otherwise, it can tip them off a little bit, doesn't it?
Okay, and our last story in the news section is the story that ThinkGeek is minting Linux coins, ideal for a last-minute Christmas gift. They're going to be, they are $12.99 US, and $3 of that, so that's not $2.99, goes to the Linux Foundation. The advertising spiel is... with the open source commemorative coins, you can celebrate your love of code, helping code, and possibly win a drink now and again. Each coin measures 33.7 millimeters and is made of silver-plated bronze. They're shiny and have a nice heft, and you want one of each. So why not treat yourself? You've earned it.
All I heard was shiny.
Shiny, and coins.
This is really irresponsible. I mean... we're supposedly in this second leg of what Alistair Darling calls the double dip graph of the recession.
Oh, well, we're already into the second dip?
We are in the second.
I was looking forward to this one.
And the bankers again irresponsibly printing coinage, driving inflation up.
Yes.
Whose side are they on?
I don't know. I'm not really a coin collector. I do have some that a relative bought for me when I was a kid. And I like those little machines you get at places like the Statue of Liberty that punches their design in coins.
Cool. You can't do them over here, can you? Because Queen's head being mutated.
Can't you? Is that why?
I've seen them at Blackpool.
I've seen it in some places, but they're much rarer over here. And I probably feel guilty saying, sorry, Elizabeth.
I do it on the new ones where she's not so pretty anymore.
Oh.
So there you go.
What do you think, Mike?
About GNU/coins.
Would they be free?
What's it like, Mike?
To do what?
No, what's it like?
Free.
It's like a Linux Mint.
It's
Come
like
on.
a Linux Mint. I remember making that joke.
rehearse that?
I was trying to give you some time there, Mike, but you didn't get it.
I made that joke
wondered why
yesterday.
that story was down there. Now it all makes sense.
Well, I think they're great for RMS because it's got GNU on one side and Linux on the other side. You can't saw off the GNU part.
If the software is free, why do we need coins in the first place?
I want one. I want a shiny.
Right, and what's this you just read out there about
Yeah.
it helps you win a drink?
I don't know.
What does it mean?
What it means, I bet you a pint there are no Linux coins.
Can someone tell me what a challenge coin is? Because I read this website and apparently the military has challenge coins that help you win drinks from people. But I'm not.
I don't know.
Which military?
Well, exactly. I don't know.
Hello, Americans. Please, please help us out of our hole.
The Swiss Army, maybe.
No.
Okay, Linux Mint is the reason for that's it.
That's a good title for the podcast, Linux Mint.
Yeah,
And then all the Linux Mint users will go on there and we'll get loads of hits.
We'll double our readership, listener, from 1 to 2.
And that general ignorance brings us neatly to this fortnight's hot topic, which this fortnight we'll be talking about the best comments we've had from you, the listener, and the reader this year. We've culled this from the open ballot responses, and also from comments that people have left after listening to the podcast.
Or anywhere, really.
And other stuff as well, yeah.
Oh, really?
We've
Yeah.
skanked through the whole site. We've been very thorough.
Oh, maybe this is why you've got more than me.
Yeah. How lazy are you?
I've got 5.
I've got 6.
Well, you could start then.
I've
No.
got one.
Well, you can go first then. You've got one.
Okay,
Who's got now?
mine is from. I actually didn't realise we were doing more than one. I can't have read the email. In fact, I didn't read the email.
There you go.
Mine's from the end of March, and it was posted to the comments list on our KD and GNOME open ballot. I actually had to look. It wasn't KD versus GNOME. We were actually asking whether we should have 2 desktop environments. Anyway, my comment is from a guy or girl called Chen Levy. They say, in some alternate... actually, the title of the comment's really good.
I remember this.
It's the title, and, it's good anyway, but the title is, We Are Living in a Fairy Tale. In some alternate universe where virgin elf princesses ride unicorns, where geeks don't squabble about the capitalization of the letter F in free, and lawyers were never invented, there is probably one true desktop environment that rules them all. A desktop environment that is both configurable but doesn't confuse the user with options, has lots and lots of features to please every user under the pink sun while keeping small and fast, and fits into 32K of memory. It's both shiny with lots and lots of bling, and keeps a sparse corporate look. I think Chen there has hit upon the answer for the life of the universe and everything and the future of the Linux desktop.
Did you give a name for it?
No.
Oh, right. I was going to install it, but...
I think it's called GNOME.
Is it? 32K, you said?
I think that encapsulates everything that we should be doing
So
on the Linux desktop.
one desktop to rule them all.
Well, maybe if that's what it takes, yeah. And nicely put.
Yeah. Also from that thread, Cool K Penguin said, TuxRadar and the podcasts are the best thing since Linux format was launched. Great stuff.
Yeah.
Hoorah!
I like that.
Cheese.
I like that line.
Mike, have you found anything?
Yeah, well, I didn't really go for best comments, just more comments that enraged me, and but I couldn't bother responding to. So
Do you get enraged?
once a year, yeah.
Mind you, you did get that phone call, didn't you, once, about the guy who'd forgotten his password?
Forgotten his password.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you're
I
right.
punched my fist through a few monitors that day. We put up an article called "Make Linux Faster and Lighter," and some anonymous penguin responded and said, "This article should really be titled How to Make Ubuntu Faster and Lighter. If anyone is truly interested in performance, they wouldn't use Ubuntu in the first place, although it is damn good for most users. True performance comes from compiling for your particular architecture, and there is nothing better than Gentoo." No, that's just wrong. Look, I think Gentoo is a really good power users distro, but some people want their distribution to be faster without compiling everything from source. Gentoo is not necessarily the answer. And also, recompiling OpenOffice from scratch using f-omit kernel and all sorts of complicated optimization flags is not going to make it that much faster.
Mike, is this something you believe strongly about?
Yeah.
Haven't I seen you pop up on Gentoo forums before?
No.
If Gen 2 is the answer, I don't want another question. It's that simple.
Did you pop up once purporting to be Anonymous Penguin with the simple message XFCE forever?
Forever. Lolzors.
Well, it seems that some of the best comments are by Anonymous Penguin. He's quite witty, that Anonymous Penguin. I quite like this one here from him. Anonymous Penguin posting on our Windows 7 versus Vista versus Ubuntu benchmarks. Fake. Thanks. It took me a week to write that stuff, and you go fake. Or here's Anonymous Penguin on the great boot race story we put up, showing video proof of Ubuntu booting quickly. Nice to see so many freetards getting desperate. All the propaganda in the world won't help when all you have to show for it is a broken, useless, non-working mess of a system. Good luck. See you again when Windows 8 is released. I bet things won't have changed.
Can I just jump in there? Because that was my other little bunch of mini comments from the Great Boot Race video comparing Vista, Windows 7, Ubuntu 9.04 and Ubuntu 9.10 speed comparison. Graham made this video on the same hardware.
No, we don't know. We don't know who made it.
Oh,
Anonymous Penguin
Steve
made the video.
The famous member of Linux format, Steve. Making this video on the same hardware, showing how these operating systems booted, and just some of the comments. One guy said, "Hey, wake up! Win 7 is the fastest. Be honest," in all capitals. Yeah, we're sorry that we weren't honest. Somebody else said, "This site isn't being honest. This video is pure BS. This is only propaganda. This is just pure bashing against Windows 7. I mean, being accused of lying is one thing. That's an attack on your own decency, but it's just stupid. Why would we just make up stuff?
Exactly, especially given that we are all funded by Microsoft.
Clearly, in the first place. Debate is one thing, but just saying, "Oh, well, I'm unhappy with what you say, therefore you must just be lying to people."
Yeah, we put in many hours of work finding ways to make Windows 7 go slower. That's what we did. We wrote programs to slow it all down.
When we criticise Linux, we get flamed. When we show how great Linux is in certain areas, we get flamed. And that's it. That's the end of me. Goodbye.
Anonymous Penguin comes back with our beginner's guide to programming. Mono is a patent-loading load of... Perl, Python, Java, and others will do the job, and without the patent suit threat from Monopoly. Well, that's me convinced then.
Anonymous Penguin is full of helpful and constructive hints.
And prolific too.
His cousin, Le Penguin Anonyme, has a hint for Graham for the podcast.
Oh, cool, yeah.
He says, "Couldn't you pass the audio through Audacity or something?"
I've been thinking of doing that
to take the edge off.
There's a new version of Audacity that's due out soon. And what I might do is, I might take the tape recorder, play it back into my Linux machine, put it into Audacity, and maybe cut out some of the cruft. So yeah, I think that's a good suggestion.
I think that's better than using Windows Sound Recorder as we do.
And all those bean cans of string too.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
we've got Brad Sucks sitting in the corner just over there with his guitar to play the music.
Also, we never untied the photographer, did we? The one who was with Mark Shuttleworth that time.
Anonymous Penguin on the Slackware Made Easy article. What do you give women? A mop and a broom? Oh, I know, Barbie Linux because it's pink. Anticipating the usual objections, if gender doesn't matter, then you won't mind using female pronouns as the default. Very interesting.
Really? All distros are she's now.
What was the point?
Well, I think she wants to say, if a user wants to do this, then she might want to install Ubuntu.
Oh, right.
Which we don't ever do we?
No.
No, we use they, don't we?
It's even worse, surely. Grammatically wonky.
Well, no, it's the usage examples of that for
well, yes,
a few hundred years.
Well, tell Anonymous Penguin that.
Hey, Anonymous Penguin.
You're wrong. You're wrong. Amazingly enough, you're wrong. Here's one that isn't by Anonymous Penguin, which is quite strange, and it's one of my personal favourites. Zerius on the best KDE Linux distro that Graham wrote. And Graham did write that, for the record.
Yeah. That was me.
Original article posted on Saturday, December 12th, 2009, and no mention of Mepis. Okay, just ignore the distro that ignited the usable desktop Linux experience. Just pass over the distro that was doing automated binary driver installs years before anybody else. Just say, nah, we won't try a distro whose tools pretty much have now become standard across every other distro.
What tools?
I can understand not trying every single distro that ships KDE in some form. I do not understand skipping Mepis. You're fired, Graham.
Okay.
Explain yourself.
Sorry, Paul, I'm fired.
Why did you skip Mepis?
It's too late now.
It
No time for an exit interview.
It ignited the Linux desktop experience.
If Graham's fired, who's going to pass this through Audacity?
Well, we just won't be able to pass it through Audacity.
Oh, no.
So that anonymous penguin has just made a massive mistake.
I'm curious, what are these tools? Yeah, I thought it was a Red Hat tools.
Yeah, I
System
mean,
config.
systems
Warren
config dash something, yeah. The Mepis installer isn't a standard installer.
Based on Red Hat?
No. Mepis was based on Debian, then Ubuntu, then
And then
Debian
back
again.
to Debian.
Oh, right, so it uses Debian tools.
Yeah, but what does Debian use? I think it uses the Red Hat tools.
Well, if we're talking about desktop configuration tools, then many distros now have moved on to the GNOME system tools things,
Which was Red Hat originally, wasn't
which
it?
were based on some of the Red Hat ones, yeah. Whereas Mandriva has Manual Control Center.
Well, maybe he thinks Mepis invented them.
Maybe so.
Maybe
Oh
not.
well, never mind. I was reading the. I was looking at the Open Solaris versus Linux piece we put on TuxRadar, and I saw that it had X trillion comments. So I decided to read from the most recent comment backwards to see what was going on. And the second comment I saw started like this. This is Open Solaris versus Linux, and the second most recent comment was: Israel was founded as an American outpost to make sure that the abundance of oil in the region kept flowing into your SUVs. That is why you entered Yugoslavia. And I just thought that was a fantastic example of how a discussion can go so radically off topic. From talking about two competing Unix operating systems to international politics. It was brilliant. And completely grossly off topic.
Yes. Here's one here, one of my second favourite probably. Bring back the squeaky ball. It's much funnier, cleverer, and more handsome than Andrew. Ook, ook, ook. That was by me.
Damn you all. But not you, Lord Kelvin, who in episode 19 sent me a really cool link. So thanks for that.
What was that to?
It was to a site about Lord Kelvin.
Oh, yes, I
Of
remember.
who did the Kelvin scale and other many, many cool things.
That nobody else knows about.
Yeah, me and Lord Kelvin.
You on Wikipedia.
Yeah.
Was
Entropy.
that for our Glasgow discussion?
It was, yes.
Right.
Yes.
And with such rabid ranting, we come to the halfway point of our podcast. Still to come, the discovery of the fortnight and our open ballot. Is it a good thing to sue for GPL violations?
Is everybody ready for the final discovery of the fortnight of the decade?
Yes.
Yep, you all look very excited.
Oh, yeah. You know something? I really am.
You really are. Is that because you've got a really good one?
It's been a hard year, hasn't it? We've all worked hard, and damn it, let's celebrate.
Let's celebrate by sharing our discoveries.
I haven't worked hard.
Join us now and share the software.
You'll be free. Hey, Graham, go ahead.
Do you want me to go with mine?
Please do.
Actually, I broke my Kubuntu installation yesterday.
Again.
Chrome broke it.
Google
No,
Chrome.
Graham, you broke it.
It couldn't boot up, and anyway...
Larry
it was
Page broke
Chrome was the
yours.
final symptom of a broken system.
And I couldn't be bothered to try and fix it, so I reinstalled Ubuntu. And in doing so, I discovered this. This might be obvious, and everybody else might know it. I think it's only applicable to Ubuntu 9.10. But anyway, it's a command on the command line. It's sudo add-apt-repository, add-apt-repository. And then you can just enter the repository name. But more interestingly, you can quickly add PPA repositories. So you could type add-apt-repository PPA : chromium-daily /PPA, and you get the Chromium browser repository automatically added, and you can install it with the next command, apt-get install. And then I discovered that apt-get install now has tab completion for packages.
Cool.
So you can just type ch and press tab, and you'll find Chromium, and Chromium the
game,
shoot 'em up.
the shoot 'em up game, yeah.
Didn't I email you about the app repository thing a month ago, saying, look at this amazing PPA instant ad for faster booting?
And that's how we
Ubuntu?
discovered it.
You know, I tend to just put your emails in the trash, but
There you go.
I should have listened, yeah. But I think actually it was John O'Bacon that must have he mentioned it in his blog recently. So
That's actually one that could be genuinely useful, which is probably better than mine. Mine is something called GNU Xnee, just to show we're not being hard on the GNU folks. This is a suite of tools that can record and play back your actions in the X window system. So if, like me, you send out a lot of emails to people saying, "I'm sorry, I don't know your password," if you want a replacement disk, please give me the issue number.
I am not Linux.
Yeah, I did not write the entire Linux operating system. Then this is made of two parts. There's XKnee, which is a command line interface, which is typically fiddly to work with, but it's got a good manual page. And then there's GNU, which is a GTK front end, and this has a nice record button and pause, and you can assign key bindings to when you want to start it. So click record, click around, type stuff in. All these events will be recorded to a file, and you can play it back later.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, which is great. So you can store up a bunch of these sessions for all your tedious chores. And of course, it'd be great for playing practical jokes on people as well. Which is the primary use of computers, really.
And for spying on people.
Yes, if you run it in the background, you can.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you'd have to make sure the environment was set up exactly the same next time, but that's very true. So if you are a spy, then I recommend XKnee. Paul?
Mine is 48454C50.
That's my phone number.
Andrew, what's yours? This is very interesting. I think this is potentially a revelation for people like me who are a bit slow, because this comes 15 years too late, quite frankly.
Okay.
If I said the words guru meditation,
I know, we know that.
you know what it means. Red and black flashingness comes into your memory straight away, Amiga fans. When things would go wrong with your Amiga, often you'd get a guru meditation error. Red and black thing flashing, and it would print an error code explaining roughly what went wrong. Was it hardware, software, whatever? This code, 48454C50, would appear when it wasn't sure what went wrong, an unknown error. Something went wrong, don't know what, that's the error. And what it is ASCII for help.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, there you go.
That's brilliant.
Wasn't the Guru meditation itself? God, who's the guy that designed the Amiga? Anyway, him. Didn't he used to sit on a skateboard or something and meditate on the problem? A surfboard.
They'd made this machine where you could sit on a surfboard and it would measure your movements.
Yeah, like We Fit.
Yeah. So I can't remember how it all fit together, but yeah, the idea was you'd have this guru sitting on this surfboard trying to meditate and think of the solution and keep as still as possible.
Well, it's very similar to the We Fit game, actually, which is the idea of stay as still as you can for as long as you can.
Oh, right.
That was one of the ideas.
That sounds like a great game.
They can sell it for £100, they can. Clever people at Nintendo.
Minting money.
So yes, that's what it went. ASCII for help.
Hurrah!
Wow.
And that just leaves Andrew.
Yeah, I found this Perl audio conversion library thing.
This is a normal software.
A few months ago, which I used to convert a big bunch of MP3s into OGs.
Right.
Or maybe it was the other way around, I can't remember. And found using the command line quite fiddly and scary because I am a noob.
Noobsaws.
But apparently now, with the new shiny KDE 4, it's been integrated graphically into KDE, and you can just do it with mouse clicks.
Cool.
If you install PACPL.
Yeah. You've got to install it first. Yeah. But then it appears in the menu. And which I read in some work that someone wrote.
Somewhere.
Some guy.
On some internet.
Yeah. No, not on the internet. It's in Linux format.
Oh, was it?
Well, you read all good things.
The proper source of information.
You know how I read stuff that you write?
Do you?
And then promptly forget what we write down.
So yeah, cheers, Graham. Thanks for that.
It is indeed the very antithesis of a closed ballot. It's our open ballot. And the question this fortnight, is it good to sue for GPL violations? It was announced this week that the Software Freedom Law Center has announced a lawsuit against 14 companies, including Best Buy, Samsung, and JVC, for GPL violations relating to BusyBox. This is, of course, a GPL licensed bundle of Unix tools, usually goes with the kernel and makes embedded Linux work very nicely. They said they gave the defendants ample time to comply, and now resorting to lawsuits as a last resort. So the question we pitched to you folks, is suing necessary in today's world, or does it reflect badly on the free software community? Moreover, should we be encouraging the naming and shaming of offenders, or does it generate bad feeling towards the GPL? Before we go to our phones, gentlemen, what do you think?
I don't think just naming and shaming. I think you should be able to get Google Maps up, which actually show offenders in your area that violate the GPL.
Wasn't there paedophile iPhone app that did just that.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my god, I wouldn't want to download anything called a paedophile iPhone.
Or Google Goggles should do it, shouldn't you? You take pictures of people's faces and they'll tell you whether or not they're a paedophile.
Or a GPL violator.
Violator. Who knows?
Either way.
Yes.
Well, presumably the GPL isn't enforceable under criminal law, so the only way to enforce it is civil law, which is suing.
Yes.
So if we're going to have a license and we have to enforce it, the only way to do so is by suing people. So yeah, it's kind of a good thing.
Okay, Graham, what do you think?
I think I have to agree with Andrew. I agree that it does reflect badly, and I genuinely hope it is a last resort. I really hope that everything else has been tried before they try and take people to court. There's a year of negotiation, of explaining and trying to find some other solution for it. But yeah, at the end of the day, we have to make sure that people don't flaunt the license. And I'm sure people like Samsung know exactly what they're doing when they stick BusyBox on their televisions. They're just waiting. You get the impression they wait for people to come and pester them for the source code or please help clarify the issues surrounding BusyBox. We don't understand free software. And I think sometimes that's going to take, it's going to take something like this for them to be forced to comply, and they do need to comply.
I'm not sure Samsung's flaunting the license. They could be flouting the license.
You're right.
Like a big bunch of flautists.
Well, Bruce Perrins has done a write-up on this, which I know that we'll talk about more soon. But
explain briefly who Bruce Perrins.
Bruce Perrins is the author of BusyBox and also a well-known open source spokesperson anyway. But he wrote on his blog, amongst many other things, he said, in short, nobody violates the BusyBox license for a smart reason. And he seems to be saying nobody would deliberately go out of their way to do this. If some company was making a massive amount of money off GPL software and very deliberately keeping it closed and adding their own bits and bobs, then yeah, we should
like
get them in. We should get them in court, ASAP. But for a lot of companies that just pick up very small utilities like this, they should be given plenty of time before we go nuts in the courts. Now, Paul, you asked the Software Freedom Law Centre how long they gave them. What was the response?
I got a word back from Aaron Williamson, one of the lawyers there, and he said the time between our last contact with any particular defendant and the filing of this lawsuit varied from about 1 month to 4 months.
So basically, they took the fact they got no response.
No, they had responses from people. He went on to say, it is also unacceptable to assure us that the problem is being investigated, but to wait a month to provide any further response. Now, keep in mind, Samsung doesn't do software very much. In fact, they do hardware and basically nothing else. When it comes to software, they probably subcontract someone else who provides a solution.
Like Microsoft in China.
Yeah, of course. That happens a lot. Then they respin it, rebrand it, whatever they want, and then put it out. So they go, we're using BusyBox. That's news to us. We're using this box thing. And they then contract their contractors who contract their contractors. And eventually, after investigation, something comes back. And the time they waited for the investigation was a month, in the worst case, 4 weeks. Not a year of talk and negotiation, just 4 weeks.
I think that's
which is very fast.
Yeah. It sounds to me like this is more of a scaremongering tactic, and I don't really like it for that, I think. I mean, suing people probably just to get some publicity.
The problem I have with suing is it's one of the things we always, as a community, don't like. So the same applies to patents as well, or patents if you're American. We don't like the idea of software patents. When someone uses them against us, we feel it's bad. And when lawsuits are threatened, we think, these are resorting to legalese rather than fair competition and stuff.
Yeah.
Now, I understand it's a GPL, it's designed to be enforced. But it's using the bad guys' weapons against them, which doesn't seem very nice. And 4 weeks does not seem like enough of a last resort to me, if you ask.
I think patents and the GPL is slightly different, though. I mean,
yeah, well, I realise that.
No, but I mean, I think it's fair to chase people who violate the GPL. I'm not so sure about patents. I think you are making the problem worse by stockpiling our own patents just because everybody else does. I don't think it's quite the same with GPL.
But what I'm saying is we're going to the law courts, what worries me.
Yeah.
The mainstream media will see software, free software, it's free, honest, free as in freedom, is taking companies to court.
Yeah, I think they'd have a point with only being 4 weeks in a big company like Samsung.
Yeah. Also, I felt a little bit dirty. I released all my code into the GPL3 because I'm lazy. I like the license. I don't want to think about it. I just release it under GPL3.
Yeah.
And I just thought, well, I'm in that little community, the ones that are now suing, and it didn't feel good. I actually thought, I'm going to relicense myself into BSD or something else. I don't really mind what license I choose. I just want to get the code out there.
Yeah.
And I just felt a bit dirty that GPL is being associated with lawsuits now, which isn't nice.
This is one of the things that Bruce Perrins mentioned as well. He said that in his blog post, he expressed that as the original and main author of the code, I think he wanted to be more consulted on this process before somebody else went around starting these lawsuits based on his code. If somebody was,
I think that's a very good point.
If somebody was ripping off macOS code, which is BSD license, so it's quite different, but and then there was some court cases going on about it. I'd like to at least know about it first to have some input.
But you don't. I mean, that's what happens when you release your code using the GPL.
Exactly.
It's no longer yours.
But you have to think about it. That's the thing. GPL was a lazy choice for me, and now I have to think about it for myself choosing it.
Yeah.
Who maybe one day in the future it could result in lawsuits, and I don't want that. That means for me now the GPL is the wrong license. I don't want it, and it's maybe think about licenses slightly more than just GPL3. Going to our comments, Fab from the Linux Outlaws, a great podcast by the way, said, "Think what you want about the religious decision about permissive licensing versus copyleft. The whole point of the GPL is to be a license that actively defends your rights or freedoms. If people like the SFLC weren't out there standing up for it, we would all have to sue. Otherwise, the GPL has no point. It's a license and as such has to be enforced, if necessary in court, otherwise people would walk all over it. At that point, copyleft as a concept falls down and you'd be better off using BSD licenses from the get-go." He goes on to say, "I think this is the right step if everything else has failed, and from talking to the people at the SFLC, I trust them enough to know this is really what the last resort measure for them. If you don't want to abide by the GPL's rules, don't use the GPL code in your product."
Yeah.
Seems quite bad. Well, for me, don't license GPL. Switch something else.
But would you reconsider if you knew that every other avenue had been tried, or you just don't want to see people sue?
So if what you said, if a full year had gone by and they're saying, please do it, no,
and they kind of ignored it.
Oh yeah. So if you're giving them an honest chance to a full investigation, and then say this is what we're going to do, because Samsung can't say, okay, we're yanking all those TVs. That's a lot of money for Samsung or whatever it is. They can't afford it. And I'd want to see enough time go by. Legitimately, 4 weeks is not enough. If it honestly is the last resort, and 4 weeks is not a last resort, folks, then go for it.
So it's actually a bad idea if you reconsider relicensing your code, because you're then leaving GPL to the likes of people who are just perhaps going to use it for their own.
Yeah, and if they want to be tarnished with the same brush as, this is a lawsuit-friendly license, that's fine. But I'm not in for software for the lawsuits.
Yeah.
I want to get my code out there and to be used freely as freedoms. And it's a shame that I now feel bad about the GPL a little bit. Doesn't look good at all. Some man whose name I can't pronounce but will try anyway. Uwomo Senzanome. The reality is that some companies, especially large ones in the US, don't speak a language with the rest of us unless it is first translated into Sudanese for them. The companies blatantly ignore the requests of the SFLC. The general public may not like lawsuits, but it is our civilized way to deal with it, as opposed to having the free software mafia walk to Best Buy with cricket bats and shotguns. Feral Penguin, a lawsuit should not be the first action, but if conditions don't change, then sue away. Without enforcement, everything the developers of free software have worked for will be for naught. And Douglas Whitfield, what a dumb question. How exactly is the GPL supposed to work if one doesn't sue? Which is interesting, really. Surely all the Unices of old worked fine just by sharing tapes between developers. And it's only when commercial people said you can't do that anymore, we're trying to sell this stuff. Then there was a problem. Before that, AT&T was passing around code pretty freely everywhere.
Yeah.
And it worked just fine. Software freedom. Wow. Without lawsuits.
Yeah. Good old days.
What do you think, Mike? You're a BSD man, aren't you?
I am a BSD man. I think the question isn't should we ever sue or not. It's how quickly should we go into these things. And yes, we do constantly as a community criticize commercial players in this business for all putting lawyers first and having massive teams of lawyers. So running around suing people ourselves does not give a particularly good impression. But like I say, for mega high profile projects, I think it's a necessity. But it may take Samsung an internal investigation 6 months, a year to work out where this came from, contractor after subcontractor, for BusyBox. And if Bruce Perens himself isn't too fussed about it, then I think it's a bit of a mountain out of a molehill.
Yeah, to be fair, Bruce's statement was actually very relaxed and very factual.
Yeah.
The bit in the middle confused me, though.
And same here.
What he said was, I'll just clarify for the people who haven't read it. Unfortunately, all of this is confusing my strategic consulting customers. Thus, I will offer them a waiver of my interest where appropriate. I will also offer a waiver to those whose companies that use my assistance in coming into compliance with the BusyBox license at my usual consulting rate for that assistance, rather than damages relating to my copyright, regardless of their past or present infringement.
That sounds like an indemnity policy.
It is.
Is this SCO's $699?
Maybe that's not what he's saying, but that's what it sounds like. He's saying, if you hire me to do stuff, I won't sue you.
You're fine.
Yeah.
But this goes back to the question. So he will not sue them, but can the Software Found Free Law Centre, can they still sue them?
Well, yeah, of course. I mean, if I write some GPL code and you contribute 5 lines to it, it's still your code, still the GPL.
So what's he effectively indemnifying them against then?
Well, his part of the copyright. Yeah.
Right.
A waiver of my interest where appropriate.
Right.
Maybe that's slightly suit ease.
It's very fuzzy.
Yes.
A woolly suit.
It is fuzzy, but it feels like SCO, which I'm sorry, Bruce, that's what it sounds like to me. Maybe I'm reading it wrong. That's what it sounds like.
Well, yeah, the whole consultancy fees business as well. I mean, Bruce Perens is a top bloke, but it does smack of him wanting to make a bit of money out of it. But who knows?
At my usual consulting rate.
Now, what is that? Yeah. One of the most high-profile figures in the free software world.
Oh, £5.75 an hour.
So suing is okay, but only with a UN resolution.
And with that, we come to the end of our podcast, and it's the last podcast of the year, folks.
Have you been a good little boy this year, Paul? Have you?
I've tried my best. I've written lots of code.
That's good.
GPL licensed
You've
it.
GPL licensed it. You've not sued anybody
No, I
yet.
haven't said too many bad things about KDE.
Oh, that's brilliant. That means you too can take part in the one more thing. And I thought,
Hooray!
given that this is the last podcast of the year, I think we should all make a prediction about the upcoming year. So this time, on podcast episode 48, assuming we're all still here, Graham, what do you think?
It'll probably be about November time, won't it?
Do you reckon?
If we started in February.
If we start, yeah, that's true. Who wants to go first?
I'll go first.
Go on. What do you reckon?
I think by this time next year, either Adobe Flash will be open sourced or will be functionally replaced as the de facto video editor for the web.
By what was HTML5, an open standard thing. Yeah. So Adobe Flash out the door then. I think a lot of people would like that.
Yeah. Well, there are PPAs now for 64-bit Flash, by the way.
Right.
But yeah, open source Flash would be very nice.
That'd be good. Flash plugin bugs me. Graham?
I think this time next year it might be possible to understand more of what monkeys are trying to communicate. I mean, actually decoding what they're saying and put it into like a human contextual language.
I really thought you were going to say then. I think by this time next year we'll be able to understand more about pulse audio.
That's it. I think there's
monkeys understand pulse audio.
There's a whole world of animal intercommunication that we have absolutely no idea about. Birds. I mean, what do they say?
Chirp, chirp, and tweet.
Chirp.
Yeah, and sometimes cuckoo.
I think we're going to crack.
Don't some monkeys now say there's a cheetah coming?
Really? Have they got a special?
You'd listen to it. It's like, "Rah! There's a cheetah coming."
Can you go and play this back to them then for the lulz and watch them run around? I reckon this time next year that Google's Chrome browser will have overtaken Firefox, and we're going to get a flood of comments saying I hate Firefox. I love Firefox, but I do believe with the big push Google's making behind Chrome
There's
now.
a bit of a recurring theme, though, isn't it? Your gecko hate.
my supposed gecko hate. Yeah. So
how is WebKit?
I am using Chromium at the moment. I'm really, really loving it. But if Firefox comes back and is faster, I'll switch back to Firefox.
There's a challenge.
And finally, Andrew, 1 year, what's going to change?
2010 is going to be the year of Herd on the desktop.
Herd on the desktop.
Yeah,
so there'll be Ubuntu Herd.
Linux has missed its chance. It's all about the Herd now.
Herd format. HerdRadar.com coming soon.
I have one more thing too.
Really?
Following my Christmas one more thing of last time, there's another Christmas one more thing this time. How many wise men were there?
5.
No.
Was it Gold, Frankenstein, and Gurr?
No.
Is it
Just
a trick
one.
question? Was there just one of them on the way to St Ives?
No. You're all wrong. The answer is we don't know because the Bible doesn't say. That's why they call them magi nowadays, because they don't know anymore.
So where does the tradition of 3 come from then?
Confusion. Filling in the blanks.
Cool.
There's definitely priests, and there could be up to 100 at a time traveling around. We don't know. It's not 3. That's all we know. And as an extra special thing for the podcast, I'm going to play you a tune, Geek fans, and you could figure out what it is. It's my current ringtone, dug up from the history of the web. Mike finally guessed it. We were testing it earlier, but it took some work. And if you post your guess to the podcast comments, I will pick one randomly and mail you some magnets.
Assuming they win, of course.
Yeah, you get it right. Yeah. See you again. So listen very carefully. It's going to be awfully tinny playing through my little phone, but we'll try anyway. It's a geek thing that I shouldn't have my ringtone given my job role, but that's life. Here is the ringtone. Let's see how much you can hear this. Any ideas?
Sounds Microsoft.
Sounds Microsofty. Sounds what, happy and upbeat or crashing and broken.
It's like the install music or something like that.
I must stress, if anyone expects us to send them anything, please give us your address.
Only if you win.
We're not telepathic.
Only if you win. Well, we can get in touch with you. Post your comments to the podcast comment thread. We'll pick one and mail you some awesome Linux format magnets.
Oh, and don't run that tune through Shazam as well, because it makes Shazam crash.
And with that, we come to the real end of our podcast. Have a very Merry Christmas. Don't forget you can subscribe online at tinyurl.com/podcastlxf. All the notes from this podcast, except for what tune that was, will be on the website. And we will see you in 2 weeks in 2010. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.